Alright guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a line graph. Now, I'm going to just use made up numbers, obviously. And so I'm just going to start, I'm going to show you how to do the whole process and what I expect of you, etc. So I'm going to do a lab that we've never done, just so that you guys can have the opportunity to do it completely by yourselves. So I'm going to do a lab in which I'm studying how the number of mice my snakes eat affects their growth. And so as a result, my independent variable, which is what I can change personally, would be the number of mice. So I'm going to write number of mice here. Okay. And if you want, I'm going to slide this over so you can see everything, my whole independent variable. My dependent variable is what I technically don't have control over. It's a result of my independent variable, which is my number of mice. So my dependent variable in this case would be the length grown by my snakes. Okay, so I'm going to feed one snake 1 mouse, a second snake 2 mice, a second snake 3, a second 4, 5, 6, and let's say 7 in 1 week. Okay, then after each week, let's say for example, or at the very end of this experiment, when I'm done, I'm going to write out the length that they grew. So let's say this snake grew 10 centimeters, let's say this snake grew 15, this grew 20, this grew 21, I don't know, 23, 24, and then 20, I don't know, 6, for example. All of these are made up numbers. Now, a couple of things for you to know. My control variables will not show up on my graph, but my control variables are things that I want not to change. So for example, I'm going to measure the length of all of these snakes on the same day, so they've had the opportunity to grow for the same amount of time. I am going to provide them with the same amount of water. I'm going to provide them with the same amount of space in their cage. I'm going to make sure that they are the same gender of snakes and the same type to make sure that they wouldn't grow any differently as a result of those differences. All of that has to be the same so that I'm truly studying how the number of mice affects the length, or the length that my snakes have grown. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make my graph. So I'm going to highlight this. All right. I'm going to go to insert. Now some people's computers might look differently than this. Just find it where it says insert or make graph or make chart, and you see all of these different options. Now the reason why we're not using a bar graph in this case is because we've got two different values. We've got my number of mice and my length grown. So what I'm going to want is to make a line graph. We call this a scatter plot because we're not going to just make a line. We want to see all the different points. So what you need to do is select this guy right here. All right. And now I've got my graph. Now this isn't anywhere close to being done, but what you should notice, because I put my independent variable on the left-hand side and my dependent variable on the right-hand side, I have my independent variable on the x-axis, which is what I want, and then I've got my dependent variable on the y-axis. Now I'm going to want to change quite a number of things, which is totally fine. First of all, I want to put axes labels. So if you go to add chart elements, you see axes, you've got axes titles, you've got chart title, which I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to start out with axis title. For my horizontal, if I click on that, I've suddenly got this, which I can select, and I'm going to be able to type. Now, my independent variable is my number of mice fed, let's say, for example. Normally, guys, you need to put units, but since number is a counting thing, you don't need to put units. Okay. Now, I'm going to now want to include my y-axis. So add chart element, add axes titles, and then my vertical. Now this is going to type vertically, so you can kind of tilt your head to be able to see it. My dependent variable, my x-axis, is going to be length grown, and then I need to put in units. So let's say I measure them in centimeters. Okay. The units go in parentheses. All right. Now I'm not quite done because I still need to deal with my title. So I've got a title right here. The whole point, guys, a lot of the time what people want is for you to write the independent versus the dependent variable. What I want you to write is describing what you did in this experiment. So for example, for mine it would be how the number of mice fed affects, and remember affects is with an A if it is a verb, affects the growth of snakes, for example. So now if someone's looking at my graph, they go, oh, okay, so what she's studying is how the number of mice, how different numbers of mice affect the growth of snakes, instead of just saying number of mice fed versus length grown. That doesn't really tell us much. Okay? So your observer should be able to see what you did in this lab experiment. Right? Then the last thing I'm going to do, I want to create a line. Now, it's not required all the time, but if I want to have a nice fit line to show the trend, what I'm going to do is click on my points. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to hit Add Trendline. Okay? And if you notice, you've got all of these different cool options. You've got exponential, you've got linear, you've got logarithmic. Notice how I'm just clicking in to see what works the best. Okay? Well, if nothing works well, if nothing fits it well, let's see. None of these really work, so I'm not actually going to add a trend line. Let's see if there are other options for. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. Sorry, guys. I don't really see anything good. So let's see. I'm going to delete my trend line. Okay. I wonder. Reset data labels. No. Add trend line. Format data series. Sorry about this. Oh, there we go. Sorry, hold on one sec.
Toyota Prius, blocking the driveway. The license plate UNRI10. Please move it immediately. Thank you.
So here we've got our trend line. So what I did, I'm going to undo this really quickly. Okay. So what I did, if you notice, I hit outline. Before it was in white. Well, if you click all of them, it was in white. But now what you can do is click it and do your outline in black. And then it'll show the trend, which is nice to be able to see. So as you can see, as you increase the number of mice, the length grown by the snakes increases. Okay? And that's all of the things that I require of you. I need a title, I need a y-axis, I need an x-axis. I would like, if I asked to see a trend line, alright, if you click and try and go to add trend line and there's nothing that seems to fit, all you have to do is right click again and then hit outline and hit black, so it'll actually show that pattern of growth. Okay? And that's all there is to it, guys.